Welcome to another Tracking Trends Thursday with Kristen Mason Coreas, owner of the Homes by Mason team. Today is Thursday, August 7th. Welcome to August. In case you didn't know, August and December tend to be the slowest months in real estate, at least here in Northern Virginia. It might be different in other places, but a lot of people are taking vacation in August. They're getting in their last vacations before kids go back to school. I thought about that, but we're not doing that. I'm excited to have a little bit of downtime to be able to catch up on our back of the house stuff. So that's what we're going to be doing at Homes by Mason. We do have 2 homes under contract, but our next listings won't be coming on the market until September. So that's what's happening for us. Now let's talk about what's happening in the rest of real estate. Interest rates actually came down to their lowest point since April. So while that may sound exciting, and I guess it is exciting, that number is only to 6.63. So we are still in the upper sixes in terms of interest rate. And I didn't move my arrow. Whoops, I forgot to do that. So we are below the monthly average, and we actually are below the year-long average. So that is the good news on interest rates. Now, in terms of expecting them to come down again, it does say here in our second point that expectations for a September Fed rate have surged this week after the jobs report. So the job news was a little bit bad. The first point here was that recurring unemployment jumped to its highest level since November of 2021. That's a long time ago. Highest since 2021, indicating it's harder for job seekers to find work. So this negative news about the job market is perhaps going to be good news for interest rates. The Fed interest rate first, which then subsequently often impacts the mortgage interest rate. Hiring weakened with services, and Goldman Sachs actually did warn that housing will be a drag on the economic growth if we don't get more momentum going, I suppose, in housing, because if you don't know it, housing buying and selling homes is a big stimulus for the economy, because guess what happens when people buy and sell homes? They call the painter, and they call the flooring guy, and they call the electrician, who go to Home Depot and go to Lowe's and purchase things. And then the landscapers and the paint from the paint store, all of these things, there is a lot of stimulus that goes into the economy when people buy and sell homes, which is one of the reasons why it is something that we do encourage, that the government does encourage home buying, because it does stimulate economic growth. So if we don't get more homes buying and selling, then that might bring down our economic growth even further. Purchase mortgage applications only grew 1% over the past week, and up 18% from the same week a year ago. So where were we a year ago with interest rates? A year ago, interest rates were lower. That's interesting. So we're a little bit higher than we were a year ago. So interesting that purchase applications are higher by 18% than the same week last year. Not sure what to attribute that to. So in the Mid-Atlantic region, which includes Virginia, D.C., Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, and New Jersey, sellers are being more cautious. We're seeing less new listings coming on the market, and we are seeing more canceled listings. I had 2 listings that almost canceled on me. They were lasting on the market longer than we had hoped and expected. I did sell one of those already, has gone to closing, and the other one we did get under contract this week. So, but both of those sellers were thinking about coming off the market. So a lot of sellers have anticipation or coming onto the market thinking that they're going to get these great prices that they might have gotten last year. One of those homes that I just got under contract, I feel confident I probably could have sold for much higher last year. And so when sellers are not meeting their expectations in terms of what they're able to sell their homes for, some of those sellers are retreating and coming off the market. So although new listings are coming down, active listings are still up 23.6% from last year. We still have more inventory than we did a year ago. And showings are up for how many weeks in a row? 4 weeks in a row, showings are up. There's more inventory equals more showings. And contract time is much slower because there's more inventory, so buyers have more choices and more time. So there's a 4-day slowdown from the same week last year. In our larger DC metro area here, showings are up from last year, but down from last week because it's summer, so that makes sense. And purchase contracts are flat essentially from last year and down almost 7% from last week. We're going into August, less buyer activity. Median time to contract, 33 days. That's such a long time in my world. Although I have had I've seen some of that this past year. So yeah, things are taking longer to sell. 7 days longer than last year and 1 day longer than last week. New listings are down compared to last year by 1.3% and up 1.3% from last week. List price is about flat. I've been telling you to expect that, and that's what we're seeing here. Median list price is only up 1.7% from last year, and it is flat, exactly 0 week over week. Active listings are up almost 32% compared to last year, but down 1.2% from last week. Less sellers coming on the market may contribute to less active listings as we get down the path. So our hyperlocal area, we run this for Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, and Falls Church. So we had a little bit fewer new listings and fewer contracts compared to last week, and we're below the average for the year. So, but not drastic numbers, slightly less. And this is our week over week data. So slightly less than the week before, both in terms of contracts and listings. Time to contract did come down by a few days. I think it came down about 3 days. So it's slightly shorter. Interest rates, as we know, are relatively stable. And then our demand to supply ratio actually went up. It was around 90% this past week. And that's a comparison of how many new listings came on and how many went under contract. So that number was not too far apart this week. And year over year, both supply and contracts were up in our hyperlocal area. And then week over week, the blue is supply. So our inventory was down week over week. It's August, less listings are going on the market. And our contracts, though, were up just a touch. I actually have the numbers up here. Let me see if I can pull those numbers for you. So we were up week over week by 1.47% and down in supply by 5.67%. So, and that demand to supply ratio was 90%. I did remember that correctly. So that is your weekly market report from Homes by Mason. Thank you for watching. And anytime you want to talk about what's happening in the market and how it might impact you and your decisions, reach out anytime. You can call me or text me at 571-210-1866. Email me at kristen@homesbymason.com or click the link down below and you can get directly on my calendar. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.